Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and/or
And good morning. It is Friday. You're listening to the Morning Mouth. I'm your host, Johnny Rooster.
and I'm Pastor Matt.
That music is loud. Yeah, it is. You know, that music is loud today. But you know what? You need it loud. If you're too quiet in life, sometimes you can't hear the noise. Okay, we're going to do this thing called dealing with grief. It's a little heavier topic than what we normally do here on the program, but I have a special guest today about that topic, and she is coming at us on the phone line from Olathe, Kansas. Her name is Shell Keeter. Shell, are you there?
I'm here.
Saying good morning. All right, wonderful to hear you. And Shell has a unique situation that happened. You know, you thought your 2020 was weird, Pastor Matt. Did you think 2020's been strange?
Yeah, it's just been one thing after the other. Not strange. It's been stupid at times, but yeah, strange is a good word to use.
Well, we had my son got married and February the 2nd because he wanted 02/02/2020 to be his anniversary. So after that, things got a little different. For our guest, Shell, things got a lot different in February, and we're going to hear about that. And what I want you to do, if you're tuning in, this is a topic about dealing with grief, and there are different stages of grieving. Well, what we're going to hear today on this program, and wrap it up here by 9:30, a little before 9:30, is we're going to understand someone's story that had a tragic, unexpected loss. So if you know anybody like that, please have them tune in. You're on Acts Media Group. This is Morning Mouth with Johnny Rooster and Pastor Matt. We're talking to Shell Keeter. That's how she pronounces her name. And she has a tragic story that happened earlier this year. We're going to hear about that now. So, Michelle, first a little bit about yourself. What are some things that you do currently?
I currently am a mom of two. I have two grown children. I have a 7-year-old, almost a 7-year-old granddaughter. I just moved to Olathe, just 8 miles down the road from where I lived in Lenexa, just over a month ago. I had met Chris. Before we could speak about his passing, I'd like to explain who he was.
Yeah, so you were
I
married.
Yes, Chris and I were married. We met later in life. We both had unhappy marriages in the past, and we just felt incredibly blessed to have found a best friend, fall in love with them, and get married. The plan was to spend the rest of our lives together.
Sure.
And that is what we did. Chris passed away February 11th of this year unexpectedly. Chris was a retired Lenexa firefighter for 30 years, he served for 30 years. And he had started a new career in pharmaceutical sales the last 2 years.
So how old was he?
Chris was 52. We got married in March of 18. He was 2 years younger. He was 50. He was going to be 53 in June, so he would have been 51 when we got married. And he was amazing. This guy was bigger than life. He was 6'6", pushing 300 pounds. He was a big guy in stature, but his personality, even more so. He had friends everywhere. He was very easy to talk to, very accepting, very loving, and funny as heck. He was he was one of the smartest men I've ever met. He was so knowledgeable, but not arrogant. And he provided a sense of security and comfort, and probably because of his line of work for so many years. But he was just such a huge part of my life. Coming out of a bad marriage, him as well, that he helped me heal a lot of those wounds that we leave behind.
How did he do that? You had both come from unhappy marriages, as you say, and you had found each other later in life. You were what? You're a year younger than he is now. You are,
Yes,
and
yes,
so
uh-huh,
after
yes.
being married for quite a while previously, or having a different life, how did he heal some of your wounds?
Oh my gosh. I say I've only been in love 3 times in my life, and that was when my children were born, the 2 of them, and then when I met Chris.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, Chris, I've loved before, but being in love is a totally different game. I didn't know I could. I didn't know I could allow myself to do this. I didn't think it was safe to be completely vulnerable and give your heart to somebody. Chris made it incredibly easy to do that, and he didn't break his promises. This guy was what he said he meant, and he meant what he said.
Yeah. So what did?
That yeah,
So when you were feeling like this was a permanent, this is lifelong love that you finally found, and February 11th, what happened that day?
that morning, Chris woke up about 5:30. He was an early riser anyway, but being over 50, he had made a couple of trips to the restroom during the night, and this was the morning one, and it woke me up again. He was a big guy, so he wasn't quiet or careful about getting out of bed. So it woke me up, but I'm so glad that it did that morning, because when he came back to bed, we just cuddled and talked and laughed. We were planning to take a trip that Friday to go to Colorado for a 4-day weekend for Valentine's Day. We really focused on our marriage. Our marriage was our priority. That was how we were going to provide a solid foundation for our blended family. We wanted to make sure there wouldn't be another divorce, and we just really took care of our marriage. So we had made this plan for this trip. Chris got back in bed. We visited, we talked, and like so many laughs. I got up, got ready for work. Then he did the same. And it wasn't until he sat on the bed and finished packing his suitcase. He was leaving for a trip to St. Louis for 2 days for business. He just sat down and he just said, "I feel flushed." And it was when I see him all morning, but I finally looked at him, like really saw him, and he was white as the shirt he was wearing.
Wow.
And so I'm like, babe, why don't you just postpone your trip for a day, and maybe you're getting the flu. Let's just see how you feel tomorrow. Nope, he had a plan. He had everything on schedule to get us out of time. So he said, "I have a morning breakfast meeting, and I'm getting my oil change, and then I'm heading the road, and I'll call on the road." I leave about 20 minutes after he does. I called him just to see if he's feeling any better. He wasn't. He just said, "Don't worry, though. When I get on the road, I'll get fresh air. I'll be fine."
Mm-hmm.
To his meeting, and it was after that he had flowers delivered to me at work.
Oh, wow.
And so Chris did that. That was for Valentine's Day, but we met the 5th of January. So the 5th of every month, he sent me flowers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Making me
guy.
kind of look like a schmuck. 5th of the month, every month, here she is getting flowers from her husband. I'm trying to think, what am I doing for my wife?
A high five.
I hope she's not watching this.
You
one.
give her a high five.
She's
A
gonna
knuckle bump.
She's gonna be watching this one, going, "Hey, where's my flowers? It's the 5th of the month." We got married. Shell, you got to know this. I got married to her on the 5th of the month, and I met her on the 6th of the month, the same month a year earlier. So 364 days later, we got married after we met. So anyway, we got married later in life too. So I can relate with all of this that you're saying, talking about a long marriage that didn't last, and then something else going on in your life, and you found each other. That is wonderful. It's kind of my story too with that. But the fact that he gave you something. So, folks, if you're just tuning in, Shell is on the line. She is in Olathe, Kansas. Her husband was sending her flowers every 5th of the month. That's the day of the month they met. What a romantic story. These are people in their 50s showing true love after a long wait for true love. All right, go ahead. It's February 11th of this year, and continue. What happened next? He's been flushed and not feeling right.
Exactly. So I received these flowers at work. I had asked him, "Don't send me flowers. It's a short week. We're leaving." He did anyway. And so I had taken a picture of him. I texted him, and I sent that to him, like, "Thank you so much. You didn't have to. You know, I love you. I appreciate you." And it was a little bit before he responded, and that's because he's in this meeting. And when he did respond, and then what I find out later. So he responds, and that text is very precious to me because it was our last text. And he said, "I hope these flowers brighten up the rest of your week."
Wow.
Had he known that he was taking his last breath at that time. He passed away while we were texting.
Wow. Where was he at the time?
So at the car dealer, picking his truck up,
Okay.
getting ready to the highway, and he had pulled over to the back lot. And what I learned later was he was programming even though he knew every road, he still programmed his GPS because he wanted to beat his time.
Yeah.
So he was actually heading back to the stop to pick up another dozen roses to have at the house when I got home.
Wow.
Because I had made a comment like, "I don't need them there. I'm at home," you know. And
right.
So he made sure I had flowers both places. But he never made it. So he's sitting there parked, programming his GPS. I'm assuming that part because that's what he did all the time. And we're texting, and then I figured he hit the road and he would call me when he got back.
Yeah.
Or get on the road. And 40 minutes later, I got a phone call, and I'm like, "Hey, babe," and he's like, "No, Shell, this is Craig. You need to get to Providence. Chris has had a major heart attack." And my dad had a couple of heart attacks, and he survived every one of them, thankfully. And I thought this was going to be like all the way to the hospital. Oh, he's finally going to eat better. I'm going to get him to exercise, and we're going to turn everything around. And I never thought when I walked into the hospital that I would be told that my husband died.
Wow. And
it's surreal. It's a moment you can't describe until you live it. It is everything in slow motion. You always think how you would react to something, and then how you actually act to something. And that's been my experience with most things in my life. But this was particularly something I never imagined, at least not for another 20, 30 years.
So, guys, if you're just tuning in, we're just talking to Shell. She's out in Olathe, Kansas. Her husband passed away from a heart attack suddenly at age 52 on February 11th this year, and we're talking about dealing with grief. Now, Shell, that's a horrible bit of news, very unexpected. How were the next few days, and then what are you doing today that's different? What do you have to say to people going through loss? So I'd like to hear you on that for the last few minutes.
Okay. Well, as it turned out, a month later, we found out it was not a heart attack. Chris actually passed away from a cardiac tamponade, aka aortic dissection. So essentially, he was bleeding out in the pericardium. And that's why he was so pale that morning. So that to me was relief. For a month, I had such anxiety. I was afraid. He had been scared. He had been in pain. He was all alone. But when they found him, he had just peacefully leaned over his steering wheel. I was told by the doctors or the coroner's office that he basically passed out and then passed away. And his last moments, he knew he was holding the phone with the text open.
Wow.
So I've always thought his last moments, he knew he was loved and appreciated.
Sure.
He died. And isn't that what we want for our loved ones and for ourselves? And
absolutely.
So leaving the hospital that evening, I knew I was going to make a lot of decisions in the next couple of days. And so I have 3 criteria. That first one was, does it honor Chris? Does it benefit his children? And does it feel right to me?
So
and I didn't need a yes.
The first one was honor. What was the second one?
Benefit his children.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And yes, and then does it feel right? Does it feel right to me?
Okay.
And I just one yes. I didn't need all three, but I had a lot of yeses in the next coming days. I felt like everything was so easy to say yes to.
So when you
And
lost
so
your husband, you're thinking after he's gone, what I'm doing honoring him? Does it benefit the children? Does it feel right for me?
yes,
And those
and
things you were saying yes to on all three.
yes,
Hmm.
and saying yes. And I had to focus on the gratitude and grief. I did not want a complicated grief situation.
Sure.
There has been to because of other people, but my personal grief, I have tried to focus on the gratitude. I'd rather focus on remembering Chris, how he lived his life, not
Yes.
that he died.
Mm-hmm.
So the gratitude began with Chris never made it out of town. Chris wasn't on the highway. He didn't crash. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't kill anyone.
Yes.
He wasn't 4 hours. I got to spend 6 hours with him in the hospital that day. I wouldn't have had that had he been in St. Louis alone in a hotel room. So these were the beginnings
Wow.
of the gratitude. It doesn't change the fact he died, and I miss him incredibly, but it changed how I was going to approach it.
Okay, so just to recap, sorry to interrupt, but just to recap, you had an unhappy marriage, then you found Chris, you married him more recently, and in your 50s you found true joy, true love for the first time even, the true love, and then with all that joy and love and all of that nurturing, in the midst of that, you lost him suddenly through a tragic health event. Now he's gone, and you're saying you're doing things to honor him, to benefit others, and to feel right about that situation. And it looks like there's stages of grief, there's depression and denial. Now it looks like reconstruction and working through is one of the final stages of grief before acceptance. How do you feel you are now, and what do you have to say about people going through grief?
I would say I'm in that reconstruction phase. I will also say, I think at any given time during your grief stages, you can revert to depression or anger or denial. Mm-hmm. First couple of days, I would still reach my phone to text him or call him, or and even like last week was a really bad week. I recently moved out of the home and to me, I feel like something. I feel so there is a lot of these emotions, but I do feel I'm toward the end of this list where reconstruction and what is my life going to look like now? I had an idea what it would look like, but how do I best honor Chris? And I hear people say, you'll meet someone else again. You know what? Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Mm-hmm. But if you're moving on, you need to move on, or you'll move on someday. Yeah. I take offense. I would rather say, I'm going to move forward. Moving forward makes me feel like I'm bringing with me. I'm bringing those memories, and someone is going to.
So you're moving forward, not just moving on. You're not putting him in the past. You're moving forward with his memory.
In spirit?
Yes. I feel like moving on feels like you're setting it down.
Moving on, it's like setting it aside. Moving forward is walking with that memory, keeping it alive.
And that's yes, and the other part, when I don't blog, I've been asked to blog, but I share my thoughts at least once a month on Facebook. And one of the focus I've had is one, finding the gratitude and grief, but also allowing yourself the grace during grief. You would allow it, you would give it to someone else, and we have to give it to ourselves. Chris was a man of faith. We both have faith. I know that I will see Chris again, and not in a particular hurry to do it, but any day works for me. I can't wait for that. But I got plenty of things and people to help while I'm down here.
Well, the Acts Media Group here is a faith-based broadcast, and we are with you on that. We understand the true meaning of life, and it's though things are unexpected, we have a hope for the future.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Shell, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to share this hard story, and it sounds like you have some wonderful grace and some tremendous insight. Pastor Matt, what else do you have to say about that?
I wish we had more than an hour at this moment, because I mean I feel like this could definitely be a two-parter. I mean, if she's up for doing it again, like
there
next
may
week
be a
or something.
time in the future, or to
Yeah.
find out when we could revisit this topic of grief, but also the part about continuing your life, moving
Yeah.
forward, not just moving on.
I think we should dedicate a whole hour to it.
Moving forward, not just moving on. So thank you,
Yeah.
Shell, and anything else that you would like to say to the people listening before we end this call today?
No, other than there is a quote that I found very early in my grief, and if I could share that with you, this
Sure.
is the one that I think it helped me set me on my journey. It's the reality is that you will grieve forever. You will not get the loss of a loved one. You will learn to live with it. You will heal and you will rebuild yourself around the loss you have suffered. You will be whole again, but you will never be the same, nor should you be the same, nor would you want to. And that's Kubler-Ross. And that's exactly it. My life hasn't ended because Chris is dead. In fact, I feel like there's a new part of my life that just started. That's what I'm focusing on.
Amen.
I think you have a lot more to say because of this situation, and I appreciate you being willing to say it to our audience today. We've been talking to Shell Keeter. She lives in Olathe, Kansas. She's 51. Her husband passed away February 11th at age 52, unexpectedly, the true love of her life, and she is reconstructing, working through, and moving forward, not just moving on. If you're facing a loss today, or if you understand what that feels like right now at this moment, I want to pray that you would feel like you can move forward with the memory, not just move on and put it in your past and stuff it. Anything last words? That's what I've got to say.
That's good. I'm good.
I think we've done great here listening to you. Thanks again, Shell. We're going to let you go, and we do appreciate your time today and sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank
All right.
you. Have a great day.
You as
too.
well.
Bye.
Well, folks, again, that was Shell Keeter. She's in Olathe, Kansas. She is 51 and has lost her husband this year, February 11th. And if you're dealing with loss, remember to go to the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords.
Amen to that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Be sure and tune in next for The Happy Hour with Dr. Paul Collins and his wife, Nancy.
This has been The Morning Mouth. I'm Johnny Rooster.
I'm Pastor Matt.
Thanks again.
Bye.